I'm Natasha.
And I'm Sandra, and Dad is right behind the camera.
Hello.
So right now we are standing in Port Dalhousie, and we are currently at the entrance of the harbor of the first canal. And right over there behind us is what would be the first lock of the first canal, which was made out of wood, but it has long since been buried.
Now, a few years ago, archaeologists dug up this area just in order to find what they could of the first lock, and that has since been reburied in order to conserve it.
Now, in the last video, we found the remnants that we could of the third canal, and today we are going to be looking for whatever we can find of the second canal, which was limestone, because the first canal is wood, so there's not a whole lot left of it.
For this video, we use the historic Welland Canal's mapping project as our primary reference. We will put a link to this excellent site in the description. What makes this map so helpful is, like ogres, it has layers, so that you can add or delete information depending on what you are looking for: first, second, third, or fourth canal. It also has historical aerial photos. Using this website, Dad dropped a bunch of pins on Google Maps of sites we wanted to see. During the video, we will have a satellite image to show where we are and what we are looking at. The icon of our rusty but sort of trusty caravan will tell you where we are. Where we are now is the entrance to the harbor of Port Dalhousie, and it was also the entrance of the second and third canal. And over there we have the hydroelectric plant, and farther to the right is the filled-in block 1 of the third canal.
And to the right of that large building is our next site we're going to, and that's the first lock of the second canal. Beyond these sailboats here, this is the entrance to the second Welland Canal. This is the first lock, and you can see there's a black structure inside there, and that has been added since, and we'll take a closer look at it. But basically it's an outdoor performance area. So this is another higher up view of the first lock, and you can see all of this concrete area has been added in. It's an improvement of what there was, which is basically a bunch of loose stones and fill. It's kind of an eyesore, so they've turned it into something for public use. Of course, looking down here, we can see the full opening of the canal, and this is one of the hinges for the gates, which we showed on an earlier video. You can see how it's inset into the wall. It should be interesting to see if we're going to be able to see any more of those hinge pins as we carry on. But pretty much from here onwards, it's all been filled in, and the waterfront area of Port Dalhousie has basically all been infilled.
So you can see right there, there's still a hinge, and see this curved bit here is where the lock gate would be. So this is kind of what we're going to be looking for as we look for remnants of the second canal.
So in 1845, this is the route you would be taking in on your way to Lake Erie. Of course, all these sailboats wouldn't be here.
This is the Port Dalhousie jail, built in 1845. It's really close to the first lock of the second canal, and it was built around the same time as the second canal as well.
So right now we're standing beside 12 Mile Creek. It's more of a raging river. Upstream from here is the DeQ Falls Power Plant, which is why there's so much water going down here. But of interest to us is what they've built this black fence on. you can see this curved wall. This curved wall is the entrance to lock number 2. And beyond this bush here, unfortunately there's this big fence here, thoughtfully installed to keep us from drowning. But right in front of us, near this tree, is one of the hinge pins for the lock gates. Now the bit of metal on top of it, that's been added. That's not part of the original lock structure. Now obviously, the other side of the lock wall is gone. It's no longer here. But this side of the lock is still intact. As a matter of fact, the lock, or the wall, juts out over there, comes in, and then you see the hinge pin. So this is where the lower gate nested inside the wall. We're still at Lock 2. We're on the Welland Vale Bridge over 12 Mile Creek, and you can see the wall there, and it's had some concrete added to it, but let's see if I can zoom in. There are limestone blocks in place, and of course we could see where the gate fit into the wall way down there. And it's interesting, right around where the gate used to be, there's a drop in the water, so there's some sort of a obstruction there that's making the water upset. And of course, as we said, only the one wall of the lock remains. The lock on this side here, or the lock wall on this side, is gone. We're on the upstream side of the bridge. You can see the lock wall continues. Of particular interest right here, you can see the pocket for the hinge and the gate. Right there is the hinge pin, and the gate goes off to the left. Let's see if I can zoom in on it here. So this marks the upper end of the lock chamber itself, and the wall continued up in that direction. And of course, as I said before, we only have the one side of the lock intact. The other side is gone. It was probably removed in order to allow more water to come down this way. Okay, it was about a 15-minute walk from a subdivision, but from the historical maps, I transferred it over to Google Maps and dropped a pin, and we were walking along the trail, and Natasha pointed into the trees and said, "There!" And right where she said "there," you can see this is the approach wall, how it's curved. So this is the mouth of lock number 3. Sadly, because if we look up this way, you can see we've got a road, an expressway. There's a lot of stuff going on here that, you know, we're lucky to be able to see as much as we can. So Natasha's on top of the wall, Sandra's standing right beside it. She'll gesture to the stones and the curve. Now this is the very entrance to the lock, and it's a standard feature of most of the locks in this area. where they splay out at either end in an effort to kind of shepherd a ship into the lock. That can't be good. So looking over to the other side, the other wall is probably under here somewhere, but we're not finding it. This may seem like a little bit of a letdown, but it is nice to point to the map and say, this is where the lock should be, and then you come and find a portion of the lock wall. We definitely have cut stone blocks placed here. I guess I would be floating in the air if this was still in use. So we're about 200 meters away from that curved stone wall, and this is the current course of the creek. This is a stream, a creek that runs through St. Catharines. It was natural at one point. It's now basically part of the storm sewer system, and we're standing on a large concrete box culvert, really. The water goes underneath us here, and we can't really follow it anymore until we get to Lock 4, because I'm not going underground through this thing. I'm not Martin Zero. There's the box culvert that we were just standing on. The creek comes out of there, where it's been passing under numerous large roads and streets and highways. We're going to try to pick it up on the other side.
Well, according to the map, this is where we should have found some rubble of the second canal, but all there is that we can see is just the creek that runs into the sewer, which runs underneath the expressway over there. We don't see any rubble. It's supposed to be what's left.
Yeah, we weren't expecting to find anything intact, but we were supposed to find the remains of Lock 4. But this is where the canal flowed. Now it's a sewer. So here we are in the remains of Lock 5, second canal. You can see the curved wings going in, and as promised, the information that we had, a road has been built on top of it. It looks like in two stages. You've got this concrete platform here, and then deeper in you can see that there's been an arch concrete structure built in there. But in the center of the screen right now, you can see the indentation, and that is where the lower lock gates would have been. And farther up you can kind of see that. Now we're not sure, but it's possible that that waterfall up there is possibly the sill from the upper gates, although it's farther out than the lock walls are. Maybe they've been torn down in that area. But to somebody who knows what they're looking for, this is definitely a lock with a bridge built on top of it. This creek is pretty much storm drainage for St. Catharines. But it used to be the route of the second canal.
We are along Oakdale Ave, and we have determined that this is the location where the second canal ran, and it's basically a valley full of trees. And if we look over here, You can actually see that that is one of the locks over there. And we will have other shots of that. I'm not sure which one that is, but it is definitely a lock. We have made it to lock 6, and this is the upper end of it. You can see the water coming down over a weir, and that was obviously established later. And you can see the V on the floor where the doors would have rested up against. And this lock is in pretty good condition. There's lots to see here.
And we can see the indentation in the wall where the upper doors would go. We're still at lock 6. And we're looking at the top of the near side where the lock gate pivoted. There's a lot of concrete goobered on top of the wall here. The other side seems to have fared better, less concrete poured on top.
So we just found this pile of wooden debris here, but it looks a lot like what we suspected were the doors for the locks in a previous location for the 3rd canal. And we're not 100% sure on it, but that's really what it looks like.
Certainly looks like they were lifted here and just left to rot. I'm sure some city planner somewhere knows. A little off the beaten path here. It's difficult to see through the fence, but we've got a curved piece of stone wall here. Now this would be the lowest end of lock 6. So this would be the curved entrance wall to the canal. This area is well fenced, so it's difficult to get in at it. But this is would be the entrance to lock number 6. So here's lock 7 proper. If we look back over here, you can see the curved walls for the entryway. And right here where I'm standing is where the cast iron hinge would be set in. You can even see a little bit of the metal is still there. And of course you can see the curved pocket for the gate. We look across the other side and we can see the inset for where the gate would lay. And the same thing here. On this side, this is the pocket where the gate would be. And the concrete bridge, that had to have been added after the canal was taken out of service, because it would have obstructed ships. And underneath, it looks like they've once again built a concrete weir after the lock was taken out of service. And it just basically maintains the water level above the lock at the level it would have been. I'm trying to shoot through a fence here. You can see the weir that was added after the lock was taken out of service in concrete. And if I go up and tilt down, hopefully you can see the sill plate for the upper gates. That would be the stone V on the bottom. And of course, we can see the insets where the gates would have been. And this is lock 7. Okay, so here we are at Lock 8. We're at the upper end, and you can see this one once again has a weir at the upper end, not original to the lock. The interesting thing is this one, instead of being poured concrete, is cut stone, and it has a cap of concrete to it. But we have all the classic features of the second canal. You can see the curved entry walls, and there's a vertical slit that they can put basically sections of non-movable gate for repairs. We have the gap, which is right underneath us, for the lock wall or the lock gates. And here's the downstream side. And even without walking down there, we can see the walls curving off to the sides. If we zoom in, you can see the notch in the side of the wall for the gates. It's interesting that one side appears to be higher than the other. Looking straight down, we can see the pocket for the hinge. Always that same semicircular part for the hinge to fit into.
So Dad may not have noticed on the other one, but on the other weirs, there was also some cut stone and then the concrete on top. But this is the most cut stone we've seen.
Yeah, better eyesight, I guess. Younger people as opposed to old farts like me. So I guess the supposition is that they installed the stone weirs around the time that the third canal went into operation. We're on a bridge over Lock 9. We're looking downstream, and on either side you can see the indentation for the gates. Can't really see the V of the sill, but we're losing our light. But you can certainly see the rounded entry walls there. And we'll go over to the other side of the bridge and get the upstream side. We're losing our light here today. Now we're looking upstream on Lock 9. And you can see, once again, they've created a weir before the lock, and that's been added after it went out of service. The pipe and its supporting structure, that's a late add, and it looks like that is another pipe, except that might be a brace to support the wall. I don't know. You can see the two sill plates for the lock gates, but they've become dislodged. They should be pointing upstream, but hey, it's only like, what, 150 years old? Something like that. But this is Lock 9. And of course you can see, as always, the indentations in the walls where the gates would be.
So we came across these two rocks, and if you look at them, they clearly look like they came from the wall. So they're all gone wild.
Yeah, bits of Lock 9 that got away. Okay, so we're at Lock 10, the second Welland Canal, and as we've seen with most of the other locks, a stone weir has been built right before the lock, and of course this has been added after the lock was abandoned. And What's a little interesting about this one is we know that this watercourse is being used as a main storm sewer. So if we look down, we can see pretty much in the middle of where the lock gate would have been that a sewer outfall has been put in there. My assumption is this is just basically surface water now, that this isn't a sanitary sewer. But of course, all of these locks were basically built to the same design. And we're on a little metal bridge coming around the other side here. I'm assuming this is a water main pipe because it's insulated, or they tried to insulate it. But looking downstream, we can once again see all the standard features. You can see the recesses in the walls where the lock gates would have been, and the curved entryway. And this is only just a stone's throw from these houses here in St. Catharines. Just another view of that water pipe. And the outer covering is just insulation. And of course, no abandoned lock would be complete without a shopping cart. We're shooting through a chain link fence at lock number 11. We're at the upper end of it, and you can see where the water level at this side is pretty high. And as we've seen at most of these old locks, there's a weir built. This one is concrete topped, but we can see the typical features. You can see the curved walls. If I back up a bit, you can see the curved wall on this side. And seeing as right behind us is a residential street, that public safety, you wouldn't want the street urchins to be falling into the lock. There is a fair amount of water flowing through here. Well, I'm trying to get an over the fence shot. I can't see what I'm doing because it's about a foot over my head. This is about the best view we're going to get of lock number 11. So we're a little bit beyond the fence. We can at least sight along the lock. And of course we can see the creek going in here. It's actually an awful lot of water flow. Shooting over a fence at the entryway, the downstream end from lock 12. I think we can get a better view from a railway bridge we're about to come up on, but you can see the curved wall where it goes into lock 12. We can hear rushing water, which seems to be a signature of these. Alright, this is a better view. We're on the CN tracks here. It's a really short bridge, so odds of me dying are fairly slim. But we can see the curved approach walls going into the lock. Once again, this is lock 12. We've got a decent tree growing from the middle of it. And we've also got a decent view down there to lock 11. That should be the weir of lock 11 we're looking at. So I'm shooting down the CN main line here, 2 tracks. Interesting that there is a siding that has been cut off to the side there. And going in the other direction. This is the Glen Ridge sub. Natasha's found a way to get through the fence. You can see the weir at the upper end of the canal, or the lock I should say. Some kind soul has parted the fence. There's the railway bridge that I was just on, and Natasha pointed something out. This lock appears to be longer than the other ones. And if I zoom in under the bridge, we can see that nowhere under the bridge on either side is a space for lock gates. But right about here, the lock narrows. It curves in a little tighter. And here we can see the characteristic notch for the lock gates. And we can see it on the other side as well. It's early morning and the sun is pretty low. But way down there is Sandra at the very end of the lock. We're at the upper end of lock 12. You can see the weir, which was constructed after it was taken out of service. What's interesting about this lock is the vertical slot we see in the wall in every one of these locks. Down in the bottom of this lock, there's a wooden beam going across. Now, it's rotted out at the ends, but basically using a series of these beams dropped into the slot, they can block off the flow of water temporarily. And the nice thing about this lock is you can see the V that's in the middle of the lock. That V is the sill that the two lock gates would rest up against on the bottom. It's nice that that is intact in this lock. Now looking here, we can see we've got a pipe crossing the lock, and right above it we have a sewer infall. Once again, this is probably not a sanitary sewer, but you can see in this instance all of the stone blocks above have been disturbed, and they've basically concreted all that in. But otherwise, this is a fairly intact lock.
So we just came past lock number 10, and we noticed this structure here, and we were kind of wondering if it was old enough to date back to the time when the canal was in use in the 1800s. And we just spoke to the owner and his friend, and he basically confirmed this. And he says that it was probably used to house the donkeys that would pull the boats down the canal. But you can see just how old the structure is, and it doesn't match anything else around here. But this whole area would have been full of places like this.